Hi, ladies. Welcome back. I feel like I've been gone forever. I had lots of holidays, but I'm happy to be back. And today we're going to be talking about choice, whether you have it or not. See you in a minute. So I am really excited. I was just interviewed for a somebody's who ran a trauma recovery summit for her YouTube channel. And we were talking about the idea of forgiveness. And I know we discussed that last week. But at the very end of the call, she had mentioned something about choice. And I just thought that is such a powerful topic to talk about because so many times, I know I've done it in the past, so this is very common that we forget that we can choose whether to do things the same way we've always been doing it, or we can choose to do things differently. I know when I was young and before I got married, when I look back at the relationships I had when I was dating, I realized that I was dating a similar type of person over and over again. And now, looking at my adult self and being able to go back and look at my life from different eyes, from eyes of a healing perspective, I realized that a lot of times when we make choices to continue in those same patterns, it's because we don't feel like we are deserving of anything better. And if we don't do the work to grow emotionally, spiritually, and physically and mentally, then we stay in those same patterns over and over again. And one of the things that I think is really, really amazing in this day and age, in the last probably 5 or 10 years, I really feel like God has really opened our eyes up to a whole new perspective of understanding emotions and so many different ways to heal. And that's part of our job right now in this generation is to really become in touch with our emotions, become in touch with our patterns, and the things that we don't like, we can change them. We can make a choice today to do things differently in the future. Now, I know sometimes it's really daunting to understand, like, how am I going to do this to be able to move forward and grow when I'm so stuck in my patterns? Some people say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, phony, I don't believe them. That's a limiting belief. And if you want to believe that, then your life will never change and grow. I remember recently I had went to a friend's house for dinner, and they had a gentleman friend who was there having dinner. And at first she was like, "Oh, maybe you guys will like each other," and this and that. And I went and didn't really interact with him so much, but it was interesting to me. A gentleman in his mid 60s or late 60s, never was married in his life, and he was talking about his sister's relationship. Apparently they grew up in a dysfunctional home, and most people grew up in some kind of dysfunction, or at least in our generation. We didn't talk about emotions. We didn't know how to express ourselves and how to deal with them. And when uh, things came our way that were difficult for us to navigate, we didn't have the tools to grow and move forward unless we really went to therapy. And there weren't so many different modalities to help us to move forward in the understanding that we have today. So I found it really interesting that this gentleman was, talking about his sister's dysfunction. And I realized, like, he's not dealing with his own dysfunction. He's never been married. So, what is it about his upbringing and this dysfunction that's keeping him from getting in a loving relationship. But you could see in his eyes that he had no positive life force in there whatsoever. And I said to my friend the next day after this meal, and she was like, "So what'd you think?" And I said, "He's not for me." I said, he has no joy in his life. I said, "You can see it in his eyes." She goes, "Yeah, you're right." So I don't know why she would think that this person was, I guess, look, you don't know, maybe there would be a spark there or something. You got to try. So I don't blame her for that. But one of the things that as we grow and we move forward and we make choices in the way that we want to live our life, we have a choice whether to be happy or to be unhappy, to do negative, destructive things, or to go and learn how to be a more positive, productive person in our life. And I'm not saying that it's easy to do, but it doesn't have to be so difficult either. I know in my coaching, I really help people because I dig deep and I work on a subconscious level. And I call my clients out on, I have a BS meter. And so if you're trying to like pull one over on me, I'll call you out on it. Because if you're coming to me, it's because you do not want to stay small anymore. You want to grow. You want to be the best person that you can be. You want to have joy and happiness in your life. The only thing that's holding you back from that is yourself. So are you done having those pity parties, blaming everybody in the past for the way that your life has turned out, and ready to take responsibility for the way you're going to live your life from this moment forward? And so everything I have been talking about every week on my show, it all leads to the same thing. And it's to find that personal happiness and that personal joy in the easiest, most productive way with the least amount of pain. Because I don't feel like it accomplishes anything for you to keep talking about the dysfunction and the pain and the trauma and any other negative event that you have gone through in your life. I don't think you need to talk about it until you're desensitized, because I think the new rule of thumb on that is the more that you talk about the trauma, you just keep reliving it. And so that's why I love doing the subconscious work, because we can really get to the core of where that issue started. I remember one time I was working with this young man who had anxiety. And when he was talking about when it manifested in his life, it probably started showing up in his early 20s. And during hypnosis, we did an age regression to go back to the trigger point of that anxiety. And it turned out he was like 13 years old, and it had something to do with his father kind of invading his privacy and his space and not having the voice to set proper boundaries. But once we were able to release and resolve that event, then there's a ripple effect forward. So again, what are your choices? Are you choosing to live with that anxiety? Are you choosing to live with the guilt and the shame that, whether it be that you've brought on yourself by not forgiving yourself, or that other people have caused to you, that you're still hanging on to? Because as I always talk about, life happens for you, not to you. We're here to grow, to be the best version of ourselves. And the only way we can do that is to look at those events and understand that it was all for our highest good. And how is it that we can use that opportunity for growth? and change our perspective in the way that we view it going forward. And sometimes we don't understand why something happened. 20, 30, 40 years later, all of a sudden we can see a connection to something and go, oh my gosh, now I understand that that event when I was a teenager had to happen because now it's saved me 30 years later. Like in the story that I've told about the gentleman who was in the bus bombing, that, he was in his 40s and refused to sit in the backseat of the bus because when he was 13 years old and sitting in the backseat of the bus, he got mugged. And he was so afraid to sit in the backseat of the bus after that, that it ended up saving his life 35, 40 years later. We don't see the bigger picture. God does, though. So if we understand that that event, as traumatic as it was there for our benefit, then we can say, okay, God, source energy, I don't understand why I have to go through this pain right now, but I understand that it is for my highest good, and I trust you, and I'm going to try and grow from this event. That's the choice I have. I have the choice to grow and not get stuck in that negative headspace, like, oh my gosh, this happened to me again. Because life becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So the more that we keep saying that life, all these horrible things keep happening to me, well, guess what? Horrible things are going to happen to you. That's a choice. But when you start to look at life with gratitude and even the hard events that happen to you and say, oh my gosh, I don't know why I have to go through this, but thank you. I understand it's for my highest good. You change your perspective on everything. And now as you start to see everything as a blessing, all of a sudden more blessings come your way. It's really incredible how that like attracts alike. So do you want more positive things in your life, or do you want more negative things? Make a choice. And I hope you choose that you want the more positive aspects in your life. We all need self-care. We all need to grow. We all need to forgive ourselves as well as the other people in our lives or who have passed through our lives who have hurt us. We need to forgive them, and we have to learn and grow from the situation. So I hope you make the choice to empower yourself to move forward. And I hope you go to my website and download this amazing 127-page self-care journal to really help you to grow to be the best version of yourself. And you can find that at www.selfcare.sheraraymond.com. And I'll see you next week.